Why not?
Good morning, everybody. You are tuned to Computers 2K now on the Nissan Communications Network. I'm Anman, your host for the next few hours, along with Mike
Yellow.
and Spence.
I'm still dizzy from being spun around in the intro.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh, good morning.
Our number is 919-518-9773, Computers 2K voice on Skype. And this morning's show is made possible by Adamus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals, and by Telestream Wirecast software. And I guess Nick is going to show up a little bit later. He probably stayed up late, huh? How long did you guys stay in the Hangouts, Mike?
I don't know, 11:30.
Wow. And there's Steve. So Steve,
And
I guess he's
and
still
movie buff.
yeah, I saw me movie buff before,
And
but
Merle.
I wonder if Steve, can you not get in to the with your computer still? And why is Merle not here? He's probably going to say he's in pajamas or something.
He's got to go somewhere. I don't know what time he's leaving yet, but he's got to leave early. He's kind of standoffish like that.
Yeah, I mean, Merle, if you have time to type in the chat, you have time to get into the Hangout, and you can leave anytime you want.
Remember, he's a government worker.
Yeah.
He's used to leaving whenever he wants.
Anyway, I was going to talk with you, Mike, again about SSDs.
You need to be careful so that you don't get those.
I'm not talking about STDs.
That's STDs.
SSD.
Never mind. Go ahead.
So I'm really, I've been doing a lot of reading. I read those links that you sent and some more. Nobody's talking about how to fix the SSD for performance after the fact.
I told you how to do it.
No, you didn't.
I did.
You said we were gonna talk about it.
We didn't talk about it in detail, but I told you briefly the way you had to do was shrink the partition, move it back, and then expand it. Because when it moves it, when it's moving the boot. When it's moving the partition, that's when it has to align it.
Okay.
But what I talked about was that boot it bare metal is probably the easiest tool to use to do that. And I was saying that we could talk about how to use that tool, which we still can.
All right. I mean,
what we're talking about, for those who don't know and will probably encounter the problem, is if you convert your computer that has a mechanical standard hard drive, if you convert it to a solid state drive or an SSD, then the architecture of the solid state drive is different from the architecture of the mechanical drive. What happens is that the segments or the chunks or the pieces over which data are written on a hard drive it has to be what's called aligned on sectors, whatever that means on an SSD. There are utilities that handle it for you. If you, for example, take your Windows disk or your Mac operating system disk and start with a fresh SSD, create your own operating system, you don't have the problem. It's not an issue. So but what happens is if you take an image of your mechanical hard drive and copy it over to a USB drive, then whenever you're ready, you copy that image back onto the SSD drive. It's actually bringing the disk geometry from the mechanical drive to the solid state drive. And what we are talking about is there is a utility called AS SSD. I don't know what it stands for. If you do AS space SSD, you'll get the utility. It's a non-installing utility, portable type utility, that when you run it, it will tell you if your hard drive is aligned on sectors. If it is not, then the speed and performance of the SSD will be compromised at least some, meaning that the best thing to do is to learn how to get it aligned on sectors and to do that. And the way I found to do it's been a long time since I did it, but it's kind of like brain surgery. Once you know how, it's really not that hard. What I found was that, as I recall, is that if you use a utility like Boot It, BIMB, Boot It.
Next generation.
Boot It Bare Metal, BIBM,
Oh.
Boot It Bare Metal, which used to be Boot It Next Generation, used to be called Bing. But it's Boot It Bare Metal, and what it does is it allows you to shrink or to make a partition smaller. So let's say you've got a 500 gigabyte partition. Maybe it only has 100 gigabytes in it. Well, for starters, the partition, there are ways around this, but the partition that you're moving to the new SSD needs to be no larger than the partition on the SSD. Now, before Amnon jumps in here screaming and hollering, there are ways to have the utilities shrink the partition before you move it to the SSD, but it's really, in my experience, it's easier just to shrink the partition on the mechanical drive. If you only have 100 gigabytes in it, then shrink it to 150 gigabytes if you have a 256 gigabyte SSD. If you have 200 gigabytes on it and you have a 120 gigabyte SSD, don't bother. It won't fit. So all I'm saying is shrink the partition, then move it over to the SSD. When you do that, when you restore the partition to the SSD, there are some check blocks in the Terabyte Unlimited utilities that force it to align on the 2048 sectors. If you have already restored the drive and it's not aligned on sectors, as I recall, what you do is you take a program like Boot It Bare Metal, which not only has a free trial, I'm not even sure you have to pay for it, but you should, because it supports the company and supports development. It's a great program. It's useful.
And it's cheap.
It's cheap. But be that as it may, as I recall, if Amnon will go in there, he got a 120 gig hard drive, which means he hopefully has got less than 100 gig on it, hopefully less than 50 on it.
No, it's about 80.
Okay, so if it's 80, go in there and shrink it to 100.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make it too small, but shrink it to 100. There is now unused space on the SSD. Take Boot It Bare Metal with the partition once you shrink it, and tell it to move the partition or to relocate. What do they call it? Shift the part. I think that's what they call it. But what it says is, where do you want me to move it? And then what you can do is pick some number. Say you want to put 1 gigabyte of blank space ahead of the partition. You put that in there, you tell it to go, and it slides that's what it's called, sliding. It slides the partition such that it now has a gigabyte of unused space, then the partition, then it has the rest of the unused space after the partition. Then, making sure that you have align on sectors checked in Boot It Bare Metal, you then go back in, slide the partition back so that there are 0 bytes at the beginning of the drive. It moves that back up by 1 gigabyte, and hopefully at that point it realigns it on sectors when it moves it. Then you now have a drive that has, in our example, 100 gigabytes with 20 gigabytes left over at the end. So you go back in and now you resize the partition again. This time, instead of going from 120 gigabytes to 100 gigabytes, you go from 100 gigabytes back to 120 gigabytes to use up all of the available space on the drive. That should fix the problem.
So really what you're doing is you're forcing the drive itself to change the configuration because you're forcing it to move it right and move it back.
Probably. I mean, that may be a good way of looking at it. I don't know enough about drive geometry to know whether terabyte's forcing it or whether the drive is forcing it, but at least it's fair to say we're forcing terabyte to adhere to the recommended geometry for the drive.
Yep. So what you're doing is because you're moving, you put the data on the drive, but it's not formatted correctly for the drive optimally.
Right.
Then you're telling the drive to move the data.
I just thought of a good example.
Yeah.
Have you ever,
under its own rules, and then moving it back?
and here's an example I thought of. It may not be valid. There are people here who know more than I do about drives, but it seems to me that have you ever been in a CAD program or a drawing program where you draw something on the screen, like maybe a line, and the grid is turned off? You turn the snap to grid on. Now whenever you grab the line to move it, it jumps a tiny bit so that it's on the grid instead of out in free space like you drew it. Have you ever done that?
Yes.
That's what I envision is happening here, that you actually move the line or the partition from its normal spot such that when you put it back into its correct place, it quote unquote snaps to the grid, which is a line on sectors.
It's going to use the built-in solid-state drive logic to place the data
On
instead
the geometry.
of the image information to place the data.
That's what I recall. Now, if that's not correct, we'll go back and edit all this out.
Oh, that absolutely sounds like what it would do. But this begs the question, though. Like, under what circumstances would you absolutely have to write the image to the drive? You're much better off by installing a clean operating system.
Well, but see, I see Amnon and I are probably in the minority on this one because, I mean, we invest a lot of time in configuring computers to do exactly what we want. And we're very particular about how we want them to work. By the time you get one configured, if all you're doing is switching from a slower drive to a faster drive, why go through all that? I can image a drive and move it over in 30 minutes. It might take me 2 days to get everything set back up the way I want it.
Let's go back to that geometry thing that we're talking about. Because I don't follow it, and logically I don't agree with that. Because when I used Ghost to clone the drive. Ghost does not take track by track and moves it. It takes file by file. It does clone it, but it doesn't make an exact image of the original drive. There are no breaks in the middle. There are no bad sectors that it copies over. It takes the files and move them one at a time, and you see how it's doing it. When you end up, you end up with a drive that sort of like was defragged. Now, Ghost will not work unless the drive that you are ghosting to is already formatted. So I formatted the SSD, but again, I did it with the operating system because that's the only way. Now, I did read in some of the articles that there are some utilities to format the SSD, but I did not do that. And then after it was formatted, I ran Ghost and it just copied it over. And as far as I'm concerned, what Spence just said, that it uses the drive's logic to place the files, that's the way that I'm looking at it. Okay, now the SSD is getting a file from Ghost, and it says, okay, I put it here. No, this is where you put it. So
well, remember how when we first started to see the hybrid drives come out, and I still have that one in one of my laptops.
Yeah.
And Seagate made a big deal out of saying that the drive is smart enough to look for programs that are used more often and rewrite them to the solid state drive and leave everything else on the hard drive. So it depends on what abstraction layer you're writing the drive.
Well,
If you're
no,
writing it as
this is
pure
not.
bit,
Yeah, but
a stream of ones and zeros, you need to run the utility. But a solid state drive, it just doesn't work that way. There has to be intelligence in it because of, Mike, we talked about this before, about the error checking that goes on and how it moves bits when it detects when a cell has been written over so many times and it's no longer reliable, it moves those bits. A solid state drive, if it's 256, really is probably a lot bigger than that with spare
Right, but not
cells to
right.
write over.
Not
So
right.
I think what this does, Amnon, is you're absolutely right about that, because it has to write it. In the case of Ghost, it has to write it as a formatted drive. But I think what this does is it forces whatever other, whether they're proprietary or not, utilities that the drive uses to organize the data into a better recovery pattern. Put it that way. That's what you're forcing it to do when you move the start of the drive in and out again. I see it both ways.
well, I don't know.
I
I
don't
mean,
have any machines that I would be that concerned about copying it in its original state, because most of my machines over time get so mucked up anyway. I want to start clean.
Mike,
Well, okay, but here's the point, Amnon, is like I say before, lovingly.
let me just say one thing. I may be way off
You
base
are.
here because I don't know that the logic that I'm thinking is actually the way it works. Go ahead.
It's not.
Okay.
I mean, it's like I've said to you before. It really doesn't matter whether you believe in the law of gravity. It's still going to be in force, and the geometry of the drive dictates how the drive is going to work. That's just the way it works. The fact of the matter is that and Brian thankfully is here. He can help me because he probably understands this stuff infinitely better than I do. But the fact of the matter is that whenever you do an image of a drive, and I don't know about Ghost, I just did a little searching here on Ghost to align on sectors. And there are articles here where Ghost generates errors because it's not aligned on sectors, and there's a command here, fsutil fsinfo ntfsinfo c:, that'll tell you what the geometry of the drive is and so forth.
Okay.
But that being said, that if you move an image which looks like a single file when it's being moved, it is not a copy, it is an image.
Yeah, that's
utility.
different. Yeah, that's different
All
than
right.
cloning.
And what happens is if you restore an image to that SSD, you can move it to the SSD. Anybody who knows this stuff better than I'm confessing that I'm showing my ignorance here, but I'm going to tell you how I envision it. And if you want to correct me, please feel free to do so. But let's suppose that you get or you record or get the geometry with your image from the mechanical drive, and you tell the utility, Ghost, whatever, to restore that image to the SSD. And a gross oversimplification would say that, let's say that on the mechanical drive, the image starts at 1024 kilobytes. That's where it starts on the drive.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason. Maybe it's got overhead, maybe it's got DOS boot partition. I don't know what, maybe something's there. It starts at 1024, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you image that drive and restore it to the SSD, it now starts at 1024, when in fact that drive wants to start at 2048 or 4096.
Correct.
But you have overridden what the drive wants to do with what the old drive was doing.
Right.
If you were starting to install the operating system from scratch, the SSD would say to the installation media, start at 4096 or whatever the number is.
Mm-hmm.
The problem would not be there. So what you're doing is you're creating the problem whenever you restore the image versus when you copy the files over. Now I want to comment on something Movie Buff said to be very careful about. He says similar to defragmenting. Well, at one level, this process is sort of similar to defragmenting in terms of alignment on the drive, but the image has nothing to do with defragmenting. And what's important to know is you do not run defragment on an SSD.
Right.
Never, 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 never.
It does it automatically.
It doesn't matter.
No, what I'm saying is it does it automatically. It does
Yeah.
it based on its own logarithm that it uses to write data. It's
But
not
do not
necessary.
do it.
Yeah,
So,
you should not write
but
run
here's a
defrag.
good question though. Why is this important? Why do you have to do this? What is if you were just to go ahead and leave the image on there the way you wrote it and try to use the machine, what would you
Oh,
see?
I mean, the machine works, Spence,
Oh,
but
it'll work.
the
Oh no, I'm
reason
just saying for
the
people to
reason why
understand what are the hazards of leaving it in
uh,
its original state?
Spence, the reason why we're talking about it is because when we were in the hangout, I said I'm not impressed with the SSD. It's not any faster, and it's not. And then Mike was telling me about that AS SSD, and
Right.
I ran it. And first of all, it had two errors on something that I don't understand. And Mike said these should be green and they're red. And the total, that AS SSD is not a utility to change anything. It's a benchmark. It
Right.
tells you
No, I'm
about the
looking at
drive.
their site. You have to translate it from the German so you can understand
So
what the guy's saying
the
there. But
total,
Actually, though, before you go any further on that,
Yeah.
if you look around, and I could do so, there are sites that have English versions of it.
oh no, I
But
just translated it. It's fine. It
well,
just
what I'm telling you is that the German version, you even in German you can follow it.
so what happened is the total score of the program when it finished was 128. And I said, okay, 128 out of what? I have no idea. Mike ran it on his machine, which is properly aligned and everything. And what did you get? 500 and something.
500 or 600.
Yeah. So it's obviously, I mean, I was expecting the only time that I see an improvement is when, and this is on a machine that's running XP. Remember how XP has those lights scrolling across when it comes up? It used to go about 6 times. Now it does it about a time and a half, and bam, it's right at the when it starts loading drivers. It's just the cursor is there on the black screen. But at that point, it's sitting on the screen a lot longer than it used to. And when I load programs, it's nothing fast. It's really, I mean, I am not impressed at all with the SSD. Now, we were laughing and saying, yeah, it's because XP and all that. No. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
drive. It's a drive. The drive gives it to the machine. The machine is a fast machine. It should show you you should have an improvement. And not knowing enough about SSDs, I'm throwing my hands up. I
well,
was getting ready to put another drive in there and just clone to it. I mean, a newer drive, faster drive, a regular drive,
I think you need to
mechanical.
look at
And
the SSD raw scores to start with. How is the drive rated? You can go and look at technical benchmarks of the raw drive that people use, tests that are not operating system tests. They use other tests and find out what is the quality of the drive you start with. The very first SSD I bought was a dog. It wasn't fast. It was cool and fun to work with, but it was not fast.
well, those
Um,
Samsung are fast drives.
so it's interesting. I did a search on it. It just occurred to me that what would SpinRite do in this case?
Ooh,
And actually, it turns out that SpinRite does actually work with SSD.
maybe.
And well, I'm reading Steve
I know.
Gibson's
I've read
website,
it all.
and it
The,
says that, oh yeah, SpinRite saved my drive and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, well, how would that do the same thing that doing this shifting on the drive would do?
Not supposed to.
Well, I guess it depends. He may have rewritten SpinRite. This is 2 years
He
old,
has
this
not.
statement.
He hasn't rewritten SpinRite in 7, 8 years.
Well, he's talked about it's 6 is the one that's out there now, and it's been out for
Correct.
a long time.
Right.
I heard him talking about a 7 release.
He's been talking about 7 for 5 of those
Yeah.
last 6 years.
Yep. He's just too busy doing other crap.
Yeah.
So,
Steve is asking again in the chat if this was an image from a spinning drive.
Yes.
It went from a spinning drive to the SSD, but it was not an image. I see big difference in saying take an image, like Mike said, which is a one file thing, and then restore it to the SSD, or run the cloning procedure, which reads a file from the hard drive, from the spinning drive, puts it on the SSD, reads a file, puts it on the SSD. That's the way that I always do it. I don't do an image.
What does clone mean?
To make it the same drive that it comes up, but
There you go.
to a point, because an image will copy everything. I don't think the SSD, the cloning file by file will copy everything. I don't know, but it's a file by file, and it takes a file, puts it there, takes a file, puts it there. It doesn't put, if the file resides on at the middle of the drive, and it starts at the outside, and just because it's copying it first, it's not going to put it in the middle. It puts it at the beginning, because it doesn't look at the picture of the spinning drive when you clone file to file.
So what you're telling me is you got a cloning program that really doesn't clone. It improves on the situation.
I guess they use it.
You, Amnon.
They use it. They use the word clone, but in the clone you can do an image also.
All right, but let me ask you this.
So what's the difference? You tell me.
Let
what's
me
the
ask
difference?
you the question.
Yeah.
When you ran SSD, was it red or green?
One was green, two were red.
Okay, I just won the argument, so go ahead.
No, I'm not arguing with you.
You are arguing.
I'm arguing about the way that Ghost does file by file cloning versus image cloning.
Tony says he just bought the SanDisk Extreme Pro 240 gigabyte drive. It's 419 megabytes per second write and 422 read, which is way faster than mechanical. Tony, run that utility. By the way, while Amnon was talking, I posted a link above to the file hippo download. As you can see several places up in chat, that is the English version of the file. The only difference is it has a translation, but if you don't want to have to fight the German, use that one and run it. And all you do is unzip it to a folder and then run it. There's no installation. It takes about a minute or so to run, depending on your drive. And when it runs, you will see, like on the website, there are some numbers in a block in the upper left corner, about the second or third row down. Those numbers will be either red if it is not aligned on sector, or they will be green if they are. There are other reasons they can be red besides not being aligned properly, but what is correct, and you can read about it from the website and understand it from posts on the internet, that whatever reason they're red instead of green, if you can figure out why they are red and change them to green, you will get better performance out of the SSD.
Well, I know what I'm going to do this afternoon. I got two of these drives, because they were really good price. I'm going to put the other one.
Good?
What?
What's really good?
$57.
I'm going to take the second drive, put it on another machine, format it, and run the AS SSD on it without copying anything to it.
Good.
And I'll see what happens. And then I'll clone the same drive to it and run it again. And we'll see how it comes up. That will be a good test.
I like that. That's a good idea, because if there is something on the geometry from square zero, or an incompatibility with the motherboard or whatever, it would be a lot easier to diagnose it without having to deal with the operating system. So that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Way to go, Amnon.
I'm reading it. Put the question up on Tom's Hardware about what's best, clean OS to SSD or clone or move image, and overwhelmingly the people, don't even waste your time. Go ahead and do a clean install.
But I disagree with that. For the non-techie, that's the best advice. But if you're willing to learn a little bit about what's going on, then
I think you're jumping into a flaming cauldron that you don't want to be in.
But Which drive did you get, Amnon? Wasn't it the?
Samsung.
Was it? You sure it wasn't the Kingston?
Oh no, Kingston. I'm sorry. Shoot, I'm thinking Samsung. Yeah, Kingston. Yeah,
This one.
yeah.
Okay. The one that the one that you got is the same one that I have inside the computer that I'm using right now for the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started running ASSSD. I'll tell you what my numbers are. So
Okay.
we've got the
Yeah.
same drive, and we'll see what the differences are in the score.
Spence, it's always a good idea to start from scratch. I mean, that's a rule that that applies both to SSDs or to mechanical drives. There's no
And
doubt.
I am not disputing it because I think that I don't. There are circumstances where I wouldn't do that, but I'm just saying is that the place I am right now in my head says that, you know what, I would much rather do a clean install.
I cannot. It'll take me weeks to put everything. I mean, my machine is not just operating system and 2 programs. I mean,
no, I understand.
it's got a whole bunch of stuff on it. And to install all these and configure them, and it's not practical, let's put it this way. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the speed of the mechanical drive. I just figured, wow, yeah, let's try it. If you give it a little bit more oomph, why not? And I was
I have
not
to say,
impressed.
The reason I have this I'm voicing this opinion is that I've had a philosophical change in the last couple of weeks from working on upgrading people that have XP on their machines, because they literally ran right to the very end of software support, and this was accounting software, and they just got to the point where the company that provided the software isn't going to support it anymore because XP updates supposedly went away. So I've been looking at this and just doing a lot of research and saying, well, I'm telling the people, well, you should buy a copy of Windows 7
Mhm.
because that's easier. And first of all, it's more expensive than buying Windows 8. And now I'm at the point where Windows 7 is more than halfway through its life. And I've actually changed my opinion. I'm running Windows 8 on a couple of machines now with a classic shell, and I really like it.
You know, Spence, I never even thought about that. That's a really good point. We're pushing everybody
you're
to
going
upgrade
ahead
to 7.
and Windows 7 has been out. When did it come out? It's been 7 years.
Yeah, 2007, right?
Yeah, so it's getting old, and I'm thinking that I'm just setting these people up to have to do this again.
Yeah, and within the next, 5 or 6 years,
Yeah,
possibly.
so
Even if you install Windows 10, you're setting them up to do it again. I mean, come on.
No,
I'm
yeah,
just
but
saying
I
Windows
mean,
8, it's stable enough now and usable to the point where I notice a big difference. I had it installed the same hardware. I had Windows 7 on it, then I do a clean install Windows 8, and I've been using that, and it works great. It starts fast. It doesn't use as much memory. It doesn't use as much processor. But I don't use the Windows 8 features. I just don't use them.
Yeah.
I just have a Windows 7 like environment. Classic Shell, if you don't know what it is it's a very good free program. It's like Start 8 and Pokey and a bunch of other stuff that were out there that came out when Windows 8 came out. It forces you to boot directly to the Windows 7 style desktop that most people are used to. But this has other features in it and other configuration settings that make it really work great. So I've set up a few machines for people, new laptops, because they were just so much cheaper to buy a new Windows 8 laptop than it was to buy a 7. I set them up with Classic Shell, boots right to it. They don't even know they're running Windows 8.
I still don't like Windows 8.
when did you use it?
I use it on other people's machine when they bring their machine over here. And
The Metro interface is awful.
well,
Yeah,
I
it's useless.
I always put
But
the
the
classic.
desktop, but the desktop part of Windows 8 is exactly what Windows 7 is. So if you don't like that part, then you don't like Windows 7.
No, I mean if with classic shell, yeah, it's Windows 7. I mean,
Yeah, and so that
and
I
that's
think
fine. There's
better
nothing
alternative.
wrong with that, except I could never figure out how to make Shortcuts from apps. I've got people that say, I would like a shortcut on my desktop of this.
Well, you can't because that's the Metro interface.
No, not in the Metro interface. In the classic shell.
Well, but an app is what's in the Metro interface. An
I
app is not a
understand, but
program.
when you go into classic shell and you click the start button, you have all apps and all programs. Apps are unfortunately part of, some programs are apps. They're not programs. Some of the things you're using are not programs, but apps. And why couldn't you make a shortcut of an app?
I just did it.
How?
I have Classic Shell, and I've got the Windows Store, Skype, and a bunch of other versions of
Under apps.
while you click on Classic Shell and you open up all programs, it shows everything. Then you just take that and drag it to the desktop. I just
Well,
created
hold
an
it a
app
second.
shortcut.
When you click on start button in classic shell,
Yes.
you have all programs and all apps. Or something like that. There are apps and programs. There are two lists. No?
Yep. I just did it. I just created a shortcut on the desktop from the apps.
I tried and tried and tried. When you right click on a program like you do in Windows 7 or XP and say send to or create a shortcut, there isn't the option is not there. So that's
Let me try it
interesting.
again. I just did a drag.
Okay. Oh, you dragged it? Okay. You see, that's the
Now
thing.
it does not carry forward the icon, which is a problem, but it does have. I've got a shortcut now, Microsoft XP or Microsoft Games, right? I've got a shortcut. I've got a LifeCam shortcut on the desktop. You just have to go in and play with the
Morning, Andrew.
icon.
Well, I don't know. It's fine. I mean, Windows 7 is going to be just right for another 10 years.
Oh, you hope so. I don't know. It's interesting though that
I mean, last night we were sitting and talking in the Hangout, and while we were doing it, I was telling Nick, I just ordered another one of those HP quad cores to use to replace my machine, and I'm going to install Windows 7 on it and all that. And I figured I'm going to do it slowly. Brian just said something that woke me up. That QuickBooks and Peachtree do not support XP anymore. That means comes May, when I have to renew my payroll thing, it's not going to work. So, Brian, this is a wake up. Yeah, I did not think about this. So I'm going to have to be a lot faster now.
That's happening a lot. A lot of programs are not supporting anything less than Windows 7. And by the way, well, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Get to it now.
No, we're going to finish kicking this dead horse.
Well, I mean, again, I put SSDs in other machines for customers and cloned it over in the same way, and it was fine. It was fast and everything, and I did not really work with it because it was here. It's on it. Take a look and tell me if it's faster. And, oh, wow, I said, okay, that's it. If I saw the boot up of XP and did not actually use the machine on daily basis, I may have said, oh, yeah, great, it's really fast. Because that's the thought that crossed my mind when I saw it booting. I said, wow. But not afterwards. And I'm not saying it's not something with my machine, the motherboard, the memory. I don't know. All I know is that I changed from mechanical drive to SSD, and it did not do what I thought it would do. That's the thing that stays in your mind. Yeah, Andrew, we know that SSDs are faster. You were just late, so you missed the whole conversation. Yeah, I don't. Well, it's the same SATA port. I know, Mike. You mentioned something about the fact that they you have it connected to a faster SATA port. I don't have faster and slower. There are 6. No, this Andrew. This is a machine that's probably about 4 years old. It's like a 6-core or 4-core AMD. That's the machine that we started streaming with back in whenever it was, 2009, whenever.
Great. Look who's here.
Damn, Sean. So it's not SATA 6. No. SATA 3, I mean.
But all right, we're going to wind this up here because
Yeah.
I said mine was 600. It's actually 415.
Well, that's still 3
But
times.
the reason it's so slow is because the write speed is slow, and I haven't bothered to optimize it because it's very fast for me, and I'm happy with it. But I'm going to
That's always a problem with SSDs. The write speed is not.
yeah.
Mechanical drives can have faster write speeds than SSDs.
But Tony was saying that he had one that was writing in the 400s.
Yeah, so some of them are depending on how expensive of a drive you buy. Like the one I have, it has a much faster read than it does write, and that's for most of the cheaper SSDs.
Right.
Which is for me,
Yep.
I don't care about writing at 400.
Yeah, but
And it
here's
says his writes at 500, and that's not really that important to me.
Mike is talking about the same drive that I have.
Right.
The exact same drive. And it's 3
But I've
times
also
faster.
got an i7 here with a current motherboard, and you've got one that Noah had
Right.
with him on the Ark.
That's a good one.
Ooh.
Anyway, enough of that. We've got enough for you guys. If you're playing around with SSDs, this is good information
Yeah.
that you can run this SSD benchmark. It won't do any damage as far as I know. There's nothing there. It's just telling you where you are.
Right.
I'm going to give you a feel for it. I'm running this, and these drives are very cheap and probably as slow as they're going to get. So these numbers do not surprise me, but they are still so much faster than the mechanical drives that it, in my opinion, gives the computer new life. There's just no comparison, particularly for boot time. I mean, it was really funny to hear all these Apple guys. They were bragging about how their computers were booting in 7 seconds. What they didn't realize is they were waking them up from sleep. They thought they were booting in that period of time, but these actually boot in about 10 seconds and from turn on time. So they're useful. And if you don't like them, Amnon, I'll give you your money back for both of them.
Okay.
So now I am
Anyway,
intrigued about this write time. I'm going to have to look at that. The other thing I was going to tell you is that I don't know where I saw it. Maybe I can find it here. But there's actually an article now that Microsoft has already started pushing end of life for Windows 7.
Yep. That's the
That's
article I
what
read
Spencer was saying.
that made me say,
that's
And
okay.
I don't really see any reason to hold on to XP. I mean, it's
No, other
we
than
got our money's
being,
worth out
other
of it.
than having priorities, sure. I mean, I agree 100%. It's just that you got other things to do.
Well, my computer's pretty important to me. I can dedicate some time to getting up to date every 10 years.
Yeah, so just quickly going back to this, not going into the SSD argument, but the one I have is 530 megabytes read, 130 megabytes write. So that's that
That's
Wow.
compatible.
drastic change, which is for me is fine.
Right.
I'm not doing massive amounts of, and my SSD is just my OS drive anyway. Everything
you-
else is on a terabyte hard
Did-
drive.
Did you just write that? Did you just run that ASSSD?
Yes.
No.
I thought you did.
Me?
I'm
Yeah.
talking
Oh,
about
no.
Nick.
I
Oh,
just searched for the drive.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
There's also a firmware update for the drive, which I suspect yours already has the update. I'm going to have to verify mine to see if it has the update.
I don't know. I got mine in June of 2013, so it may not.
it checked and it said that there is no update available.
How do you tell?
The program. What was it? Something. I don't remember. There was something. A question came up and said about do you wanna update your firmware?
Yeah.
And you said yes, and he said no, you already have the latest. I can't remember which program it was.
Yeah, and Andrew's making a good point here too. He
Uh-huh.
said that he just tested the speed of his older quad core machine, installed SSD, read and write in the 400s, much older SSD. And he's what he's talking about is a good point in that certain SSDs will work better on certain machines, and depending on which port they're plugged into, which firmware version is on the hard drive, the brand of the hard drive, all those things are important. And the only reason I brought up that utility is because it does allow you to look and to see where you are. If you find yourself in the 400s, stop right there, no problem. But if you find yourself in the 30s, then you are not experiencing the benefit of the drive.
Right. That's exactly the problem I have. It's not in the 30s. It's in the low 100s.
So we'll see. We'll figure it out.
I
Okay.
felt much better when I was in my 30s.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you're doing.
Anyhow. Okay, what did you want to talk to? What did you want to talk about, Mike? After this?
There are several things. One is that end of life for Windows 7 that Microsoft has announced, and I don't know what I did with the article. I saved it so I would have it for today, but unfortunately, I don't know what I did with it. I believe I sent it to you guys, but the article is saying that Microsoft is stopping further development of Windows 7, which, as far as we are concerned, that's no big deal. I would not expect Microsoft to continue to add new features and things to Windows 7 when Windows 10 becomes available.
Right.
What we are concerned about is whenever they stop providing security updates, because Windows, of course, leaks like a sieve when it comes to security issues. And that is supposedly we should be able to use Windows 7 with updates until 2020.
Uh,
So you need to
That's-
start getting ready to switch, Amnon.
That's pretty long. That's pretty long way. A long way.
It'll be here before you know it, and you'll be griping about having
See-
to update.
See,
Windows
Amnon,
14.
Amnon, this is a good idea here, though. If you're going to be building that new machine, you might as well throw Windows 8 on it.
I don't want 8. If anything, I'll wait for 10. That's crazy.
Why is that? I mean, you're probably not going to have the computer built for the next year. I mean,
I'm-
realistically, do you think you'll be moved over by the end of 2015?
I probably have older programs that will not run on Windows 8 too, and I need to find out.
That's what I would look into, but I'd
yeah.
much rather have you put the time into upgrading to Windows 8.1 than upgrading to Windows 7, which by the time you get up and running, you're going to have 3-4 years left on it.
Well, here's an interesting date. The end of mainstream support for Windows 7 is January 13th, 2015.
Yep. 2 days. I wonder if they'll extend that though.
Oh, they'll have to. Business customers.
I
will
don't
demand it.
know that they will extend it because
Okay,
of one.
but now this is the point that I wanted to make. The impact of them terminate, or what did they call it? The procedure is what?
End of mainstream support.
Right. But that means that they are not going to be developing anymore. No more service packs. That does not mean they're not going to have security fixes.
Oh, we know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's-
Okay. But
Yeah.
I know you know, but I want to make sure people listening don't start panicking that we've got another XP on our hands. That is not the case.
they actually give a just if you go to the Microsoft webpage that has a description of the product life cycle, I should say. It tells you the difference between mainstream and extended support. So, but the interesting thing is that Windows 7 came out, what was it, about 6 years before Windows 8, and yet there's only a 3-year difference in the end of extended support. So, Windows 8 is actually end of extended support is 2023.
Well, the thing is, from a few articles that I read, Windows 10. I mean, people were saying how Windows 10 is going to breathe new life into the Windows operating system. That it's going to clear all these problems that people had with Windows. You
And-
know
and
that Windows 10 is going to learn from 7, 8, and do away with the problems because they don't want to lose money. So to give me another 6 years or 7 or 8 for that matter, I'm going to do with what I feel comfortable. I do not want to use Windows 8. I don't know. I just don't want to.
That's fine. You're not required to. I will tell you that yesterday I spent quite a bit of time working with a buddy of mine who just bought a new computer. It came with Windows 8 on it.
Yeah.
I had him install Classic Shell on it, which makes it not look a heck of a lot different from Windows 7.
Right.
No, Classic Shell is the best. I've tried them all. I've tried Stardate, Pokey, and a bunch of other ones, and Classic Shell is definitely the best program to do
And
this.
he's not having any issues with it. He did find out, as Nick and I were talking about last night, we did find out that his Intel built onto the motherboard video card, which is the Intel HD, either 400 or 4000. I guess it's 4400 maybe. Maybe that's what it is. Does not have anti-aliasing on it. Or if it is, we couldn't find that it has anti-aliasing. And that's a problem.
Okay.
I'm looking at Kingston Toolbox for this SSD drive. You might want to run that on yours, Amnon. Drive configuration, firmware update drive firmware. Oops. Download firmware complete. I don't believe that.
All
The
right.
best way to fix anti-aliasing is to just take your glasses off and you won't notice it anymore.
I feel your pain.
It smooths everything out into a soft blur.
Guys, you take it over. I'll be right back.
Okay. I don't want all this crap. I don't know what all this is.
So I had an interesting question from a friend yesterday who was shopping for his daughter. They wanted to buy a webcam, or I should say a IP camera or baby monitor. They were looking at both baby monitors and IP cameras. And I steered them towards getting an IP camera because they thought, oh, well, the webcam or most of the baby monitors only work in the house, even if they're wireless. But and it can be quite expensive. But you can get a decent, controllable IP camera for. I bought a kit. I got it at Sam's Club about a month before Christmas. I think it was $69 or $89. I don't remember. It came with a router and a tilt pan IP camera with decent night vision and digital zoom. It didn't have optical zoom, and preset views, motion capture with a email, and an app for your phone, so you can control it, move it. And I got him convinced now that he doesn't have to spend a lot of money like he thought he was going to. It's a D-Link camera.
I haven't heard much about D-Link lately.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's all of a sudden now Belkin seems to be out there a lot more. Belkin was known as a wire company, really. They started out by building communication wiring, and now they bought a company. I don't remember the name of it, and they rebranded it as Belkin. But a lot of those products all come out of the same design houses. You just get different covers and different logos on them.
Well, we are officially off of the Netgear router bandwagon. I have dissuaded a number of people from buying Netgear, which I now think should be avoided like an STD. And that being said, I got my buddy an Asus router for Christmas. We haven't hooked it up yet, but that seems to be the way we're going to move for a while until we find out it's good, bad, or indifferent. Sean and says that's the best one. So if it's not right, I'm going to let him pay for it.
I've been using TP-Link, and it's just an off-brand of the same hardware essentially. But the nice part about it is that they support DD router, that open source router.
DRT, WWDRT, or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yep. Yeah, I forget the name of it. But a lot of nice features, and it's good hardware. It's cheap.
Yeah, I have trouble with a lot of that off-brand stuff. I mean, it may be wonderful, it may be exactly the same thing, but for example, yesterday I had a computer that I'm working on. A buddy of mine, a lawyer, had his associate was sitting there doing her work, minding her own business, and all of a sudden the computer flashes and nothing happens. They can reboot everything, but there's no video, no nothing. When I say reboot, they can restart. There's nothing on the keyboard, no mouse, no nothing. And so I had them bring it to me, and when I got it here, I disconnected the hard drive, the CD, everything I could, and it still would not boot. I took out all the memory. Then when I restarted it, it gave me a memory error, so I knew I was onto something. I put in the 2 sticks it has 4 sticks in it. I put 1 pair back in it, it would not boot. Took that pair out, put the other pair in, it booted fine. And here's the thing that gets me, and you guys put your heads together and tell me how this can happen, because I'm perplexed over it. When I put back in the 2 gig sticks in it, it would not boot. When you turn the computer on, all it would do is the fans would spin up, and then about 20 seconds later the fans would go into turbo speed. Nothing else would happen. I took those 2 sticks out, put the 2 1 gig sticks in there, and the computer booted fine. I said, okay, one of the 2 gig sticks is bad. I took out the smaller sticks. I put 1 of the 2 gigs in. The computer would not boot. Good, it's the other stick that's working. So I put the other stick in. It would not boot. It will not boot with either of the 2 gig sticks in the computer. I took those out. I put the 2 1 gigs in there. It booted fine. I put 1 of the 1 gig sticks in there. It booted fine. I put in a 4 gig stick from another computer. It booted fine. The only time it would not boot is if I put either of the 2 gig sticks into the computer and booted it. I went over to Entrex and bought 2 gig sticks to put in there, and it's sitting over here working perfectly. How does a computer fail and take 2 gig sticks with it at the same time?
Something happened to the BIOS.
Well, I reflashed the BIOS.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be just a compatibility issue. It could be, and those sticks work fine elsewhere.
No, I haven't tried that. If there's something wrong with them, I don't want to throw them in another motherboard.
Yeah.
I'm not going to waste my time on that. The test was to get 2 brand new sticks and throw them in there, and they worked perfectly.
I had an issue with a laptop trying to upgrade it, and had to.
I wasn't upgrading. This computer's been working fine for a year.
Well, this one was working fine, and I tried to expand the memory, and I bought what it said was the correct memory, and it was a brand name, would not work. Went from 1 to 2 gig, and finally had to return those, and it was, like I said, it was a brand name, Crucial or something like that, and I bought off-brand stuff, and that worked.
Well, I went over yesterday to our local store is Intrex, intrex.com.
On Maynard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I bought their off-brand Centon or something like that, which was $30 for a stick of 2 gig PC3. And the thing that I like the guys at Intrex, they're very helpful most of the time, but this memory has a 1-year warranty on it. And if you buy Kingston or Crucial or any of these others, they have a lifetime warranty. And you say, well, what's $30? It's worth the gamble. Well, yes and no. What happens if you decide to hold on to the computer for a long time like Amnon does? These sticks fail 2 years down the road when the memory prices have gone through the roof. Now that warranty is worth a lot more than it is today.
Yeah, that'll be a problem. I'm anticipating now. I've got an ongoing job where I'm working on repairing an old well, it's not that old laptop, a 17-inch screen laptop with screen cracked, and I had the owner buy the screen, and I've also got a couple of machines that he has that we have moved past, but he wants to upgrade the memory and install Windows 7 on them for backup. So it should be interesting to see how this goes now. They are Dell machines, which is, at least the support is fairly good on their webpage for drivers and things like that. But I'm anticipating there's probably going to be some problem.
Hey, Andrew.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hollywood.
What's going on?
You?
Amnon, one thing, did you try a different set of cable?
I did not change the setup. I saw that. I'll try it later on today.
Because I had that happen on mine. One of my SSDs, I thought I was getting good read-write speed, but apparently I was getting in the 200s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what, let me change the cable. And I changed the cable. I just swapped the cable with another one, and I was getting in the 400s.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try it.
A bend, anything could affect it.
Yeah. Nick, remember we were talking about watching Netflix on other countries?
Yeah.
Well, apparently Netflix is beginning to crack down on these.
Oh no.
Yeah, they're starting to block VPNs.
Yeah, VPNs and proxies, and I don't know if they can track who's using it and get back at you.
Well, you sign into your account, so yeah, they can.
Well, they said that they're not. What was it? They're not. They're not enforcing. They're not going full blast on this, but they are beginning to concentrate on logins. I mean, places that a lot of people log into that are unusual, and they're beginning to look at IPs and stuff to see what happens. So it's.
I mean, realistically, they probably don't care. I mean, they're getting paid.
Oh no,
either way.
they
It's not
do
like they're
care
using the
because
service
they're
for free.
They probably don't care, but it says due to complicated licensing agreements.
Yeah.
So-
So they have to publicly go out and say, "Hey, this is not good. We are going to stop doing this. This is bad."
Well, maybe, and maybe somebody will pull the tell you know what? I'm sorry, you can't show ours, and they don't want that to happen either.
Exactly.
So
I agree.
I don't know.
Well, there's also a little mini crisis going on in the music licensing world as well, with regard to it's a complex issue, and I'm not going to go into it because I haven't even read the entire article. But the short story is that prior to 1972, artists were never paid for music that was performed on radio or in the media. After 1972, the artists were able to get money for the performance. Before 1972, it was just the writers, not the performers. And
Really?
the guys who were the Turtles, Flo and Eddie, or their names, I forget their real names, but they sued saying it's unfair, it's not right, and that they need to be able to get royalties. And what you're going to find is that while a lot of oldies internet stations and others are going to probably stop programming that music until this matter is settled, because there is the potential for some very high licensing fees. And people like Nick may say, who cares about 1972? That's the Stone Ages. These things have a ripple effect, because Nick actually knows and likes a lot of music from the 60s that we've listened to. He knows the words to them and everything, primarily because of movies and commercials where these songs have been reused effectively. And so there's going to be a ripple effect that will go all the way to current music. I saw that Taylor Swift is nominated for a Grammy Award, so obviously there's no one else to give it to. And so what can I tell you? It's going to have a ripple effect if this lawsuit continues to be successful, and so far it has been successful. It's going to put some internet streamers out of business.
Interesting. I don't think it takes much to put internet streamers out of business.
Well, the ones who are doing it legally.
No, but
No,
no,
I know.
legally. That's the problem.
Yes, they are.
I've said this for so long, and it's such a pet peeve of mine that all these people are internet. They have internet radio stations, and majority of them are just playing their iTunes track list. They're not paying royalties. They're not doing any of that.
But that's a very broad generalization.
Like, you see that on Just Stream. You see that JustCast. You see it on. I used to see it on Stickem all the time. All these people, they're just people staying at home, unemployed, just playing music, thinking they're a disc jockey,
Hater.
and they're using.
Yeah, but Andrew, if you go to Shoutcast, there's a lot. I would say a majority of the stations have licensing.
I think many do. I think many don't.
But here's a case, though, Nick, where the ones who are doing it right and playing by the rules are going to be the ones who are hurt the most.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I can't stand it when I go to a website and I just see on the front page Dog 95.5 WZZK, and it's not even a station.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have. I doubt anybody on JustCast or all the other.
Well, on JustCast, you can't have license. You have to use a service like Stream Licensing, so you can't even do it.
That reports the metadata.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're doing it on any CDN, it's not legal. I mean, I technically streamed music illegal yesterday, before on the radar.
All right, you got that Amnon, mark that, so we're gonna hold that.
Yeah, right. Listen to this. our illustrious law legislators. An Indiana court has ruled that a hard drive that was sent to recycling was not destruction of evidence. The ruling stemmed from a BitTorrent file sharing case filed by Malibu Media, where a defendant claimed that his hard drive had failed thanks to heavy use. Malibu claimed that the act was destruction of evidence and filed a motion demanding a default judgment. The court denied this motion, suggesting that because that hard drive failed, there was no evidence to destroy in the first place. Because the hard drive failed, there was no evidence to destroy.
Well, the IRS will certainly buy that argument.
I would love that argument.
I can't believe that a court will make such decision and not.
But Amnon, what I've told you here, I've said it repeatedly, and I don't mean this to be funny, and I don't mean it to be critical. The law is very, very far behind on technology. These judges and lawyers don't understand how that data, the data on that drive, are retrievable in probably 95% of the cases.
But this is ignorance. A judge could have walked to the IT department where there's a peon probably sitting there and tell him, oh no, any drive can be recovered. Chances are good that it can be recovered. I mean,
I wish I could find this little spoof that Rush Limbaugh does on Charlie Rangel about a forensic accountant. I don't know where it is. I've got it somewhere. I doubt I can find it, but it is hilarious about sometimes people don't find things they don't want to find.
Right. Yeah. And another interesting article here. Nick, pay attention. Young people in Britain have become a lost generation who can no longer mend gadgets and appliances because they have grown up in a disposable world. The professor giving this year's Royal Institution Christmas lectures has warned. Now, I see the same thing here in the States. Danielle George, professor of radio frequency engineering at the University of Manchester, claimed that the under 40s expect everything to just work and have no idea what to do when things go wrong. Unlike previous...
But wives are the same way, Amnon.
But this makes a lot of sense. I was actually talking about this on one of my shows. Is the oversimplification of computers because now they're appliances, right? Is the oversimplification a positive or negative for this generation of computer users? My brothers, they could open up a computer and build it because they've seen me do it. But how about my kids? How about their kids? They are going to have no idea about a hard drive, about a video card, just things are going to work, and then they're going to stop, and they're going to dispose them and buy a new one.
Well, there's actually another dimension to it besides that. How do you open this and work on it?
It's very difficult. You practically can't.
It's miniaturization.
Well, the other thing is a lot of those devices are meant to be disposable. What was that, an MP3 player you held up?
Yeah, MP3.
How much was that?
Software, right? I mean, remember, let's go back to the XP days. Amnon, I know you remember this because you're still using it. I still have a lot of these bad traits. I do MS config. I manipulate what files are being started up.
Yep.
We should do defrags. We don't do defrags anymore. Nobody does MS config. Nobody shuts down the services for fax and tablet features. Nobody's doing that stuff anymore because you don't need to do it. Things just work fine. Even if you have 120 processes running in the background, it doesn't matter because you have an i7 quad core.
Get a Mac.
But you know what, Mike? That makes a lot of sense, right? You don't do that on a Mac. Nobody thinks about these things. It's a non-issue nowadays.
I know Mac people don't understand technical things.
But let's go back now. Before, people used to repair their watches. If your watch broke, people knew how to repair their own watches. People knew how to repair their radios. My TV went. I opened it up and I fixed the capacitor that had blown on the thing. Nobody does this anymore. We're in this appliance age. Everything.
Yeah, but Andrew, there's another reason that I don't think that I think people are people like this, because like Mike just held up an MP3 player. That thing was probably what, $30-$40?
Oh, I probably paid $25-$30 for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Why would you waste your time trying to repair a $25 device?
But see, that's a great example.
Exactly. Let's see how Andrew answers this one, then I'll answer it.
Okay, so that's a great example. My grandfather was a jeweler, and he was a watchmaker, and he was also an electrician. So when I was a kid, he taught me how to repair these things, and it stuck with me. It was the fact that just because you could dispose of it doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't try to learn how to fix something. I think there's a whole generation now of computer users, of hardware users. Our mentality is this disposable mentality, and we don't try to repair it. Yeah, it's $25. I could go buy a new one, but think of what you're learning by opening it up. Even if you break it, even if you don't fix it, you still learn what was inside.
Mm-hmm.
Mike,
I agree with you.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. And there's an example where a guy I know, this is many years ago, but a guy I know was working with, you always have these guys who really understand life, and they understand how to manipulate you to help you things. And at the time they appear punitive, but in the rearview mirror, they really were life-changing moments that benefited you tremendously. And what this guy did was he hired an engineer to go to work for him, and this engineer goes to the boss and says to the boss, we need certain equipment like an oscilloscope and a frequency analyzer, all sorts of things. This is years ago. It's like $20,000 worth of equipment. He asked the boss, he said, can I buy it? And the boss thought for a minute. He said, yes. However, if it ever breaks, you have to fix it. I'm not going to ever pay for maintenance or having it fixed. If this is something you need, if you're willing to maintain it. And the guy thought, well, that's sort of a strange request. Why would you spend $20,000 on something and not spend $200-$300 somewhere along the way to repair to calibrate it? So anyway, the guy said, sure, that's fine. So they bought the equipment. A number of years go by, and finally the oscilloscope, a very expensive piece of equipment, breaks. And he goes to the boss. He said, we've got to get this repaired. And the boss says, no, you apparently don't remember the conditions under which we acquired that equipment. He said, what do you mean? He said, my condition was that you could buy it, but if it breaks, you have to fix it.
Yeah.
And so the guy said, okay. And he dug into it, and he reported many years after the fact. He said that what he learned in having to maintain test equipment advanced his career in engineering more than any other thing he did, including his schooling.
Yeah.
Because he had to. So why do you do it? Because you have to. I mean, Amnon and I are both really bad about spending 8 hours working on a computer.
Right.
Now, who the heck? Nobody's going to pay you 8 hours to work on a $300 computer. It's ridiculous. But here's the point. That's how we learn. So if it takes me 8 hours to fix a computer, then the next time I run into that problem, instead of taking 8 hours, it'll probably take 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You got to learn somewhere. This problem computer that I was working on yesterday, the only problem with this computer so far, from what I can tell, is that it had 2 bad RAM sticks in it. I have probably 3 hours tied up in this computer. Why do you have 3 hours tied up, you ask? Because I have experimented with other things to see if anything else might be wrong with it. I've been doing all the updates. I've been experimenting to absolutely unequivocally confirm the problem, because most repair people now, and without calling any names Amnon might be familiar with, automotive repair shops have gotten to where now you bring the car in, you say the transmission's slipping. Oh, okay, that is the transfer gear, the transfer box. That's $2,000 to repair it, including labor. Okay, do it. Without even diagnosing it properly to determine whether it really is the transfer case. So what happens when you're not around, they go get a reconditioned transfer case, they put it on there, it doesn't solve the problem. They leave that one on there, and then they keep digging, and they find out it's really in the differential, so they fix that out of their pocket. And as far as you know, the transfer case was the problem, and they fixed the problem, when in fact it wasn't the transfer case, it was the differential. And what this means is that because of labor rates, too many things have become shotgun it, get done with it, get it out the door, move on, don't worry about it. I'm not saying that's all bad, but it's expensive.
It's very
Mike,
expensive.
There's also no such thing as repair, just replacement. When you go to a computer shop, for example, and you say, there's something wrong with, I think my motherboard is bad, I think there's something going on. Who's going to change it? They're just going to replace the motherboard. They're going to just put in a new one. The same thing happened with my TV that I was talking about. My TV went. I called Samsung. They go, oh yeah, you got to replace the motherboard. It's going to be $600. So at that point, my option was, well, I either open this up and see what I could do, or I go and I buy a new TV and I opened it up and I played around with it. Even if I broke something, it would not have mattered at that point. But
Right.
I taught myself how to solder a capacitor in it.
Right. But there are situations where, like if you're talking about a motherboard is what now? $60, $70, $80, $100?
I bought one Friday that was $167 on a dual core computer. And the reason I bought it is because I can return it, which I will, because this guy needs this computer back tomorrow morning.
Okay, that's different.
And I thought that maybe if worst case, I can fix anything on it except the motherboard, and so I got a identical motherboard to go in it. Thankfully, it didn't need it, and I can get a full credit on it. Mm-hmm. But $167, I could probably buy the computer for that if I looked around.
Yeah, but the thing is, what I'm driving at, Mike, is if you had to take the motherboard out and test it, and find out which component on it is failing, and assuming that you could get that component, and assuming that you had the tools to solder it in, how long will it take? And how much would it cost? If I'm going to work on it for something like that, and I'm working 2 hours, I'm going to charge for 2 hours. Because here, it's not a learning thing. It's a matter of actually accomplishing the. So at that point, it becomes, no, it's better to replace it. Now, when you go like what Andrew was just talking about, $600, now there's, our TV went to the point that you turn it on and it doesn't come on till 30 minutes later. And they they said it's the motherboard. I did some reading and it turned out it's some kind of capacitor or whatever.
Was it a Samsung, Amnon?
No, it was a Sharp.
That was the exact problem I have with my Samsung, where you would try to turn it on and it wouldn't turn on. It would take forever to turn on or turn off.
Yep.
Same exact thing. So I opened it up and I just changed them.
But here's the point. I just dealt with this with a monitor. I had an old 19-inch monitor.
Yeah.
That when I opened it up, sure enough, it had 5 bad caps on the motherboard.
And you can see that. You didn't need to.
Look how bad this one was. When I took it out, the lead fell off because it had actually, you can't see it on
Yeah.
the show that well,
Yeah.
but there's
There's
actually a dome there where this cap is bubbled. This one is the biggie. So I went in, completely recapped the thing, put it back together. It still doesn't work. So it doesn't always work.
Well, I mean, it may be
Probably what
another
happened.
one. Yeah.
Probably what
But-
happened is when these caps failed, they probably took something with them, which
But-
often happens in switching power supplies.
But what I was going to say is I realized and I remembered that I got an extended warranty on it. So I went, and sure enough, there were a couple more months left. So I called the company, and they're here in Raleigh, and they came and picked up the TV and fixed it and brought it back. It didn't cost a penny. And I asked the guy, I said, how much would that have cost if I did not have? He said, well, the capacitor doesn't cost anything. Work, it may have taken 2 hours to take it apart and put it back together and all that. So it would cost you about $100. Sharp. No, you have to replace the motherboard. So
that
that's
seems really low. That seems really cheap.
Very, very cheap
Yeah.
to me.
I had a square trade warranty on my television, and the one side of the screen would go blank. The LED backlight would go out, and they came and they replaced two of the only three components that are in the television, and it fixed it. But it was interesting. I was just downstairs now, and it acts differently now. When you turn it off, the screen looks different. When it starts up, the screen looks different. And now, if you turn the device on, I had been trying to eject a Blu-ray disc from a Blu-ray player, and as soon as I turned the Blu-ray player on, HDMI automatically switched to the Blu-ray player.
You can turn that off though. That's in the
Oh, I
TV.
know it's a new, but it never did that before.
That's just resetting the firmware, yeah.
I went in to look at the menu, and the menu is expanded, so I got a newer version of the.
Firmware.
Spence,
Well,
do you have
The
specials?
defaults are different.
Yep.
Spence, do you have specials?
Yeah, I sent them to you.
Oh, I did. Okay. Well, you want to go with it? It's
Yeah.
It's
You wanna
10:30.
Distribute. You want to put a link up there first, or?
I'm gonna go. You start, and I'm gonna.
Well, you have to wait till he.
Yeah, wait till he has it up. Nick had something he was going to cover too with regard to gaming.
So go ahead, guys.
All right. So this is actually interesting. I sent this both privately to Andrew and Mike. I got one of these. I got an email this morning from some freelance writer. It almost looks like link baiting. I'm not really sure what this thing is. Mike, did you have a chance to look at this thing at all?
I did. I looked at it yesterday, and my comment was that it's really somebody who it's not quite link baiting because they're offering to reciprocate.
Yeah, I don't really understand this.
Go ahead
so,
and read it so people know what you're talking about.
Here, I'll read it. This girl's name is Emma. She works with a number of freelance journalists. Some write for the Huffington Post and some other larger gaming publications. She says, we're currently involved in a project with major gaming websites that we thought you might be of interest in for your site. I was wondering if you'd like an article for Radar Gaming in exchange for a link to our client. That's the part I don't understand. So, what exactly are they offering in exchange for a link? So they give me an article and I have to link to something else?
Let me just take it. Spence, did you see the specials that Nick did last week?
Yes.
Okay.
I did.
Because I didn't want to erase it before you look at it. Okay, that's all.
No, I did. Thank you.
So what do you think, Mike?
Well, what I think is somebody's out there, they're fishing for links.
Yeah, exactly.
And what they're saying is, you probably, based on what we see with what you're doing, you probably want the same thing we are, so why don't we just swap links?
Okay.
I think that the cheesy part of it is they probably haven't even looked at your content that closely.
Oh, no, of course. No, I don't think they have.
It's not necessarily a bad idea, but it's like on some of these boards that I'm on with podcasters and all that. You link to my show, I'll link to yours. We'll get each other listed and new and noteworthy in iTunes, and boy, we'll make $1 million podcasting. So let's swap. So Depending on what your goals and objectives are, if you're trying to get noticed, it doesn't hurt to participate in this stuff. But it didn't appear, based on what I read, that she was trying to sell you anything. So I didn't see any harm in it, but I also don't see a great benefit. It's probably worth the time.
So you think I should email her back and
Yeah,
figure this out?
well, I wouldn't use my regular account. I'd use a different account.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. Use one of the accounts you don't use, your email accounts that you don't use that often in
Well,
case.
she already emailed it to this
Well,
account.
then I would reply to her, say, sure, let's swap links. I don't see that it'll hurt anything. Now, does anybody here disagree with what I'm saying?
It's just the weird. It just, I'm not really. I don't really understand.
Most of these cases, and I didn't hear the whole story, is the one who's asking you to do it is the one who is going to benefit the most.
Of course.
But it's fine.
I don't see it as a scam per se.
No, I'm gonna maybe ask for a little more
And-
information on this.
And Nick,
That'll go. Yeah.
And Nick, at this point, I mean, you can try it and see if it works. Since your email is here, you can try and send an email to Nick whatever you want at Radar Gaming.
Oh, that'll work. But she already has my email. So
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
saying.
sure,
I'm
yeah.
just telling you,
Yeah.
you can do that.
Yeah.
All right, the specials are up there.
They are? Okay.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right. This week's specials, starting with Office Depot Office Max. They have a Dell 15.6-inch Core i3 laptop, $170 off for $379. They are selling a Brother P-Touch handheld label maker for $15. That's $20 off, so it's more than half off. They do have a Netgear N300 Wi-Fi cable modem router. The only reason I mention this is because it's got the cable modem and router built in. I probably would not get it built in. I would get it separate because of technology changes. But it is $99 with a free with a $10 gift card. They have a HP 17-inch Pavilion laptop. It has got a AMD A8 quad-core processor, $429, save $200. Western Digital, My Passport Ultra Portable Hard Drive, 1 terabyte, $69.99. That's 20 off. They have a 2 terabyte version, or $99.99. Lexar Jump Drive USB 3.0, 32 gig, for $24.99, save $15. They've also got a 64 gig version for $39 and a 128 gig version for $79. Lenovo Tab A850. This is a Android 4.2 tablet, 16 gig of storage on it, 8-inch display, $119.99. That's $60 off. They've got an HP DeskJet 2450. This is a wireless printer with copying and scanning, $69, save $10. They've got a Brother Mono laser printer, basic printer, but it does come with automatic two-sided printing. It says scanning. This is wrong. It's not scanning. It's just printer, unless it scans it through the paper feed mechanism and not on the flatbed. $59. It's 50% off. Save $60. They've got a Samsung laser printer, also a small desktop printer, half price, $64.99. Samsung laser printer with duplex and wireless for $149.99. That's half price. And they have a Samsung wireless print copy fax laser for $199. That's also 50% off, save $200. I didn't even know this was still available. Does anybody still use WordPerfect?
A lot of lawyers still use it.
Still, yeah. Well, there's a deal on it. It's half price.
I use
it says Home and Student Edition, but
I use it almost every
for WordPerfect Office.
I use it almost daily when I refer to WordPress. It always comes up first. WordPress.
Okay. So I guess it's still useful, and it's probably compatible with Office. All right, they've got a Viewpoint InstaScan sheet-fed portable scanner for $79.99. That's $20 off. They've got Microsoft keyboards on sale. They've got a Microsoft wireless all-in-one media keyboard. This is with a built-in touchpad for $39.99. And the Microsoft Natural ergonomic keyboard. This is a corded keyboard, not wireless, $49.99. And that's it for Office Depot Office Max. At Staples, they've got a 16 gig flash drive, thumb drive for $6.99, save
Wow.
13. 32 gig for $12.99, save 27. 64 gig for $24.99, save 45. They still have some deals on Windows 7 installed PCs. They have an Asus Core i5 desktop computer, $579, save $120. 12 gig of memory, 1 terabyte hard drive. They've got an HP Core i3 desktop for $399.99, save $100. They've got a Toshiba i3 laptop with Windows 7 installed for $349.99 after rebate. They've got a Samsung 24-inch widescreen LED monitor for $149.99. That's $70 off the regular price. They've got a Intel Core i5 Dell desktop computer for $499.99, save $130. And this is, I think, the deal of the day on laptops. This is a Dell touchscreen, 15.6 inch with an AMD A6, $349.99. It's $200 off. They've got a HP OfficeJet 5740 all-in-one printer, $119.99. That's $30 off. HP Envy 4500 wireless all-in-one e-printer for $69.99, save $30. HP LaserJet Pro, $129.99, save $80. You also have the Brother wireless laser printer. I think it's one step up from the one we mentioned before, the basic machine, $99.99, $50 off the regular price, plus a $20 Staples gift card. And they have a Brother MFC wireless all-in-one inkjet printer, printer scanner fax copier for $99.99, save $50 with a $20 gift card. They have the Western Digital MyBook desktop hard drive, USB desktop hard drive, 4 terabytes for $139.99, save $30. They've got a Brother wireless all-in-one laser printer. This printer scanner fax copying for $149.99. That's $50 off. Logitech MK320 wireless keyboard and mouse combo, $19.99, save $10. And they have the Logitech MK710 wireless keyboard and mouse. This is a high-end media/gaming keyboard, $69.99, save $30. And here, this is not necessarily a technical item, but a very good price. They've got a 9-watt LED light bulb. This is by Brighton Professional Brands. It's like it might be Staples branded. $3.99. That's $6 off the regular price. And that, I believe a 9-watt is equivalent to a 60-watt bulb. I've been using LEDs now. I got Home Depot had a good deal on Cree LED bulbs, which are Cree is a local company in Raleigh that makes LED technology. And I got a really good deal, a 4-pack of bulbs for, I don't remember if it was $9.99 or $12.99, 60-watt replacement bulbs. But very good light output. They don't have any
Those
warm-up
Cree
time.
LEDs are excellent.
They are. They're no warm-up time, and just a little bit less power than a CF compact fluorescent bulb, but just excellent.
But now that's an interesting point that you make, because in my experience, the CFLs were actually brighter and starker than the incandescent. In my experience, the LEDs almost are exactly like the original incandescents that we like.
I noticed that a few of the fixtures that I put them in, I had dimmers on my on the nightstands with those touch lamp dimmers, and I had fluorescent bulbs in it. Incandescent bulbs, because fluorescent didn't work properly, and I put in LEDs in there, and actually liked the frequency of the bulbs and the light output better. It's a little bit brighter for the same wattage that it applies, but just much better light for reading.
I really like these LED. And the reason why is you may have been in Alaska, but we actually spent quite a bit of time talking about these. And in fact, Brent and Chad is an expert on these bulbs. And we evaluated them because we certainly whined enough about being required to use CFLs whenever the incandescents were made illegal to manufacture in the United States. And certainly we complained about that because I've got a bunch of CFLs here that I'm actually going to throw in a recycling bin somewhere because I hate them. I've got some brand new ones that I'm just not even going to use them. I bought a bunch of the Cree 60 watt LED bulbs, and I have to tell you that, and this is, I had meant to follow up on this before, is the reason I'm taking the time now, in that my long-term multi-month use of it now is that when I turn on a lamp, I have to look to see if it's an incandescent or an LED unless I'm paying close attention to how quickly it turns on. I am 100% happy. In fact, I like the LEDs better than the incandescents, to the point that the incandescent bulbs that I bought up are probably not going to be used.
Yeah, I'm happy with them too. And I did, for some unique applications, I was buying them before the price came down. I put a new light in my shower that I didn't want to ever have to touch again. So I put in an LED bulb, and that was probably $27 a couple years ago.
Yeah, the one thing I don't like about the LEDs is that the 100s are still expensive.
Yeah, they are. But
All right.
60 really does, it's enough light for most circumstances.
For a lamp or a bedside table, for example, the light bulb that I have lighting me up right now is a Cree LED 60 watt in a lamp that's about 3 feet away.
I put one in the kitchen for the reflector bulb that used to be in the above the sink. I had a fluorescent reflector bulb in there, and it took a long time for it to warm up. And this bulb is instant on and very good light. Okay, yeah, I'm sold on them. All right, so that was it for Staples, and finally with Best Buy. For those of you who have that extra money sitting in your wallet you don't know what to do with, we've got a Lenovo Flip and Fold Freedom laptop, the Yoga 2 Pro. This comes with a i7 processor. It's got a 4th generation i7, let's see, QHD touchscreen. Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro delivers versatile performance, only $1,049.99. Save $50, $150. Yeah, I'd like to experiment with that if I had the money, but HP 15.6-inch laptop, AMD E-Series. This is an entry-level laptop, $229.99. This is a popular machine. A lot of people buy it. I bought this same variation of this machine several times for people to replace laptops that are used for browsing and email and so on. Good machines. Even if you have to replace it every couple of years at $229.99, it's a deal. They've got a Lenovo 15.6-inch AMD A6, $299.99. They've got a PNY 32 gig USB 3.0 flash drive for $15.99, save $44. Logitech MK550 Wave wireless keyboard and mouse combo for $49.99, save $30. CyberPower 625 VA battery backup, $44.99, save $20. They have the Logitech H800 wireless headset, $59.99, save $40. That's got a microphone boom mic built in. It's not quite over, it's on the ear. I wouldn't say over the ear, but I've tried this one. It's very comfortable. I have a useful device here, and the price is good. It's a J5 Create, they call it, USB 3.0 multi-adapter. And this has a gigabit Ethernet port. This has a USB port. It has a VGA display port on it. $59, save $20. So if you want to add another display to a laptop and you don't have a docking station, this is a cheap alternative to add that second display. Also to give you gigabit Ethernet port.
Does it connect to, it connects to USB or display ports?
It's USB 3.0.
Because a buddy of mine's using a second monitor connected to a display port.
Yeah, so that's just an adapter. It's
Correct.
Yeah, because it just adapts the display port out to whatever VGA.
Second VGA.
DVI, yep. Acer 19.5-inch LED HD monitor, $89.99, save $40. And I put this next item up here simply because I know people are thinking about this, getting rid of their landlines. A lot of people I know have done it.
Ooh.
I know it's a good topic to talk about whether you want to have a office powered landline in your house or not for
I'll tell
safety
you about it
reasons.
once you're done. Go ahead.
But there's several people who I know have done this, gotten rid of their landline, and are going only with cell. This is it's made by Panasonic, and there are other brands that make it. I think AT&T has a version of this. It's called Expandable Cordless Phone System with Link to Cell. And it uses Bluetooth technology to connect to your cell phone the same way you would have your car adapter work. And once you lay your phone down at home next to this device, and they do make more expensive ones that actually charge the phone.
Next to the base.
It's a bit next to the base, I should say.
Yeah.
It now uses the cordless phone in the house to access your cell phone. So this one works with 2 lines. It has an answering machine, and that may or may not be valuable depending on your circumstances. But it will do the same thing like if you have Bluetooth in your car. You'll see you have access to your menu, to your directory calling, hands-free calling, and so on. And it's $84.99, $15 off. I've seen it at some of the warehouse stores too for similar pricing. But Amnon, are you using it with your phone yet?
I'm not using it with the cell phone, no, but it works great as a telephone system around the house.
Yeah, it's a DECT system, which means it doesn't interfere with any of your 5 or 2.4 gigahertz wireless in the house. But what a great idea if that's what you want to do. I mean, it's still. We can talk about the landline controversy in a moment, but all right, Seagate Backup Plus, 2 terabyte external USB.
To go back to it, you can use it with voice over IP. I mean, remember, it's not just for
it's got a POTS line on it. That's right.
It's got a POTS line, and you can, if you have an ATA from anybody, from Vonage, you connect it to it, and that becomes your phone.
Yeah, so it acts just like any cordless phone.
Right, exactly. Go ahead. Sorry.
But that feature, the Bluetooth feature, and you want to share. Maybe you have a landline, but you want to also have the convenience of having your mobile phone calls come in on the same handset. It'll do that too.
Right.
Which is actually pretty good. Seagate Backup Plus, 2 terabyte USB 3.0 portable hard drive, $99.99, save $30. Toshiba 1 terabyte internal 2.5 inch hard drive for laptops, $49.99, save $25. As always, when you buy any hard drive or a USB connected hard drive, check the specs, check the stats, look at the reliability numbers.
Where are you reading that one?
What's that?
The one you just said. Oh, never mind. I see it. I got it. Go ahead.
Yeah. PNY Optima 240 gig internal ATA SSD drive, 2.5 inch form factor, $89.99, save $20.
And just so that you will know, if this drive is worth a crap, that is a very good price for now. The prices are dropping on these, but Amnon paid like $54, $57 for a 60 for 120.
For 120.
This is twice that for 90. So this is a good buy on one.
That's why I've noted this was a good price.
Well, what's interesting though, Spence, is that it's only discounted $20.
I know the regular price is that's amazing that it's $109. And Optima is that's pretty much their flagship brand too, which is.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of PNY. I know you like them and you've had good results with them. I haven't had particularly bad results, but as far as I'm concerned, they are an off-brand that has been legitimized by Best Buy.
PNY. Actually, we had them on the show years ago. They make the flash drives and the flash memory for a lot of the manufacturers out there.
Yeah. So.
Go ahead. All right. A lot of people are familiar with Neat scanners, and they have their sheet-fed portable scanner on sale for $129.99, save $50. I like the sheet-fed scanners for doing photos. It makes it easier to do a lot of batch scanning because it automatically crops the photo as you slide it through there. You don't have to worry about picking a screen region on a flatbed scanner. Some flatbeds will do that too. Depends on the software. But a good deal, $129.99. They've got a Western Digital 1 terabyte external USB 3.0 hard drive, portable, $69.99, save $30. HP Envy 5530 wireless all-in-one printer for $89.99, save $40. I have the 5660. I just bought that as a replacement for my Kodak piece of junk that I had. And so far, I'm very happy with the way it's working. I'll let you know from an ink perspective how we do, but has done the job. I got that on sale for $109. Canon Pixma wireless all-in-one printer, inkjet, $69.99, save $30. I don't know that these are particularly good prices, but they did have the Roku players there. Roku 3 streaming player for $99.99, Roku 2 $69.99, and the streaming stick for $49.99.
Those are regular prices.
Yeah, the regular prices.
Now,
And
having
then,
said that, let me offer
Chrome-
my input for what it's worth before you get to that. If you don't have a Roku, you should go get one.
Yeah, they really are. That's what I primarily watch. I have an Apple TV, but because it doesn't do Amazon.
Right.
I
But
use it for
if you're going to go buy one, let me suggest, just from personal experience, that either get the Roku 3 or the streaming stick. I have all three of these, and my Roku 2 crashes a lot. I don't know whether it overheats or what, but it'll just say it'll freeze up and then it'll reboot and start working again. Maybe it's just mine, but I would not. The processor supposedly is better in the 3. I would spend them if I'm going to spend $69. I'm going to spend $99. You can find these on sale cheaper at Amazon and other places from time to time. But I will tell you that there's also a fourth version here called an MHL that plugs into an MHL port, HDMI port on your TV, and allows the Roku to be controlled by your TV if it is an approved brand like a JVC. I do not like that particular version because the remote on the JVC TV does not have this 30-second jump back button on it, which I use probably as much as anything. I ended up spending an additional $25 getting a remote for the MHL version of the streaming stick. All that means is that if you're going to buy a Roku, get either the 3 or the streaming stick, or if you buy a 2, make sure you buy it from someplace you can take it back if you find out that it crashes on you.
So the last item we have for Best Buy is the Chromecast, similar to that last version of Roku you're talking about, although I don't think they offer controls through the television.
No.
But $29.99, which is $5.01 off of their regular $35 price. And I haven't kept up with apps on Chromecast. I have it on I have a TV that's mounted on the wall at my desk, and I just haven't used it recently. So I don't know how well they've kept up from an app perspective, but it is a inexpensive way if you want to put your Android tablet up on the screen or play things from your laptop. It does support putting video up. And that's it for today.
Okay. Look what Mike, look what Tim Barber is putting in the chat about the higher end Roku.
Didn't even realize that, Tim. He's saying that the advantage of the Roku 3 or the high-end Roku at $99 is that it has the USB port so that you can watch movies from a USB jump drive, MP format. You know what? I didn't even realize it because there's so much available to watch now through Netflix, Amazon, Hulu Plus that it will outlive me. So, but that's interesting to know. Gene says the Roku 3 is $93.97 on Amazon Prime. I got to tell you guys, it's one of the few devices that I can unequivocally endorse in terms of being a geeky sort of person. Even my wife uses it to watch NHL streaming because of not being available on our local cable system and not being otherwise available. And I mean, even she can understand how to use it.
Roku's great because of the amount of applications that are on there and amount of services that are on there. But if you're going to talk about hardware, I'm a big fan of the Amazon Fire.
Haven't tried that yet, and it may even be better because you know how this technology is working. It's leapfrog. Somebody comes out with something, then the next guy has to make it better. So it may be a better device. That's a good point.
Hardware-wise, it is. Feature-wise, it's not.
What are you talking about? The Amazon?
Yeah, because a lot of these apps are not on there
Well, but the other thing, the Amazon is if you want to do some really lightweight gaming, the Amazon does leaps and bounds over the Roku.
Well, that'll be interesting to play with as time goes on. Right now, it meets my needs. Last week we were talking about the OBI 200, 202, 100, 110, and true to my word, I bought an OBI 200, which is what I have here in my hand, and I would bring it up closer to the camera, but I can't because the power cord is not long enough. But you see how big this thing is. It's just a little tiny critter here. And what I have done with this is, because right now, even I got a notice yesterday from AT&T, whom I'm fighting with over what they're charging me for my home phone service. I'm paying $40 a month just for the privilege of having a home telephone line for telemarketers. So I decided I had played with, and I have been using VoIP for 4 or 5 years now. It has not been the most exciting thing in the world to use. I have a service called VoIPO that works pretty well, but there's a lot of latency and lag, things like that in it. I decided to buy one of these OB200s, which I bought, and got it configured pretty quickly. It wasn't really difficult to set up. But what's interesting in it is this particular version, you can have up to 4 VoIP services installed in this box. What I have now in the box is line 1 is a Google Voice number. Line 2 is my VoIPO number. Line or service 3, it's not a separate line. Service 3 is a second Google Voice number. And I dial them all on this phone, just a regular standard telephone. And what I'm going to do now is call Amnon on the phone from a Google Voice number, so you can find out what it sounds like.
You want to call
live demo.
You want to call on the phone, or you want to call on?
Yes, I'm using the phone to call you on the phone.
Are we talking about calling on the regular phone or on the
919-518-9773?
Yeah.
Amnon, if he calls you on the regular phone, how is everybody going to hear it?
I've got it on the.
It's ringing, but you're not answering.
Yeah, I don't see it ringing here. I may have to restart. B. 518-9773, right?
That's what it should be.
All right, let me restart Skype.
No, hang on.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So here we are, and now I'm calling in. I'm actually dialing out on a Google Voice telephone number.
It
Right.
sounds it.
It sounds
like
it.
a regular telephone, right?
It sounds maybe a little bit better. Well, I don't know, because people normally call with the cell phone, and on the cell phone it sounds really bad.
So that's
You're very audible, Mike. I can hear clearly what you're saying.
Yeah.
There is latency here. You know how we're trying to talk over each other. So there is some latency here, but here's my point. I'm talking over this service. This Google Voice number, at least for now, is free. It's free long distance, free monthly service. All you have to do is sign up for, if you have a Gmail account, you go into Google Voice, sign up for a Google Voice account. Then whenever you register this device, this OBI device at obtalk.com, you have to put in your Gmail information. And in fact, if you're logged into your Gmail account, when you go to your OBI account, it actually can read the cookies on your Gmail account and say, do you want to use this number? And you click OK, and you're already set up. It's really easy to do. But the point, there are 2 points here. One, it is free, and two, the quality is not the same as a copper phone line, but it is as good as or better than a cell phone for free.
Now, how much is this OBI? Because you've known this for a really long time now. I've been looking to do some kind of desk phone for Craig Digital Designs, and I hate paying for these monthly services. How much is this for me to get set up?
$50.
There you go, $50 in a phone.
Maybe I don't know. The OB200 is the one that I bought.
And that's the higher end one that's got like 3 lines.
No, it's no. The 202 is the highest end one that allows you to have two different lines. On the OB202, 202, I think, you would actually have to have a two-line telephone to be able to access the two lines, which you don't need. You only need the one telephone or one line port phone.
Correct. How
which
much is
OB200? I don't know. Look it up. I got my hands full.
Which one do you have? You have the 200.
OB200. I have the OB200
Yeah,
on Amazon. Got it.
Go back to the Hangout.
No, I'm going to answer Dr. John's question too here. He says, how do you select the service you are using? If I pick up the number and dial 919-518-9773, it goes out on my Google Voice number that is configured for line 1 or for service 1. If I want to dial on my VoIP or my VoIPO number, I have to hit star 2, which selects the second service, then dial my number. The same for 3 and 4, star 3, star 4. That allows me to pre-select the line that I want to dial out on. But the fact is that if you have those 4 lines configured on the device, that any one of them that rings is going to ring your telephone. So anyway, I'll go back to the Hangout now.
So now, what a solution might be here, Mike, is for anybody actually.
Mm-hmm.
You can pay me. I think it's like $20 or whatever, and Google Voice will transfer a number for you. So for
but why bother?
Well, I'm saying in my case, maybe this is a solution for me to transfer my cell phone number, which is currently what's on my business card and what I use for my business phone number, get that transferred to Google Voice, and then use that desk phone.
Yeah, I mean, you can. The options are endless.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a way that I can set. Because I don't really want to forward my number to Google Voice. To be honest with you,
that costs you.
It'll cost me, and then I won't get any texts or anything.
Don't you have unlimited talk?
I do. But it's a lot easier to talk on a desk phone than it is.
Right.
No, in that case, you can forward it. And why you? Oh, that's right.
No, what I would do, Nick, if it were me, I mean, it's what I would do is not be too aggressive about it, but what I would do is I would get a Google Voice number. If they're kind of getting harder to get for the ideal numbers because a lot of people have them. I've got about 5 of them.
You're saying get a new number.
I'm saying get a new number and list it as your office phone versus if you want to separately list your cell phone, you can continue to do that.
No, so that's. I think I already have a Google Voice number actually.
And then what I would do is if people call you on your cell phone and you want them to call on the office phone, I would tell them, say, I'm on my cell phone, let me give you a call right back. Call them back on the other number, and if they're going to be a regular caller, just ask them to call you on the office number. Then when you reprint your cards and so forth, you can then put the office number on there.
That's a good idea, actually.
There's a one gotcha here. The one gotcha is that for right now, Google Voice is free. There is no guarantee that it will always be free.
Any way you look at it, it's going to be cheaper than a landline.
My wife and I are very seriously considering dropping the AT&T line. I mean, that's $500 a year I'm paying to have a home phone for telemarketers.
Yeah.
But Mike, what else do you have that's AT&T? Anything else?
Our cell phones are, but we're probably getting ready to blow over to Verizon.
But then you're fine because most of the time, like we have home phone with Verizon, right? So we have like everything is bundled: the TV, the internet, and the phone is bundled. And I look to drop the phone because I don't even have a phone connected to it, and I think it's like an extra like $24 a month.
It's amazing how it adds up.
But I can't drop it because if I drop it, they're going to raise the price. So it's only going to be, it's going to be virtually the same thing.
Right. You have to look at the total amount, and if there's no benefit in dropping it, keep it.
Yeah, you can't. That's how they do it because they're not making money from that. And there's no more copper line. They moved everybody over on the Verizon network to their fiber, to digital.
Copper will disappear by 2020 nationwide.
Oh, yeah. You know what's funny? They want to cut my copper in the worst way, and I don't let them.
No, I wouldn't yet. Not as long as you have control.
You'll get a dial tone on. God forbid the world ends. The world, you can't get a dial tone on a digital line.
Well, if the world ends, what do you care about a dial tone?
Well, if there's an emergency.
There's
in New York?
There's there's probably a lot of people in your neighborhood who want to cut your copper and take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people. I'll tell you, Mike, when they have come over, I want to say maybe 6, 7 times. Verizon has over the last maybe once a year at least. They come over and they want to cut the copper line. They want to totally disconnect it and cut it. And I don't let them because I own one of the lines. One of the lines is not a Verizon line; it's a Covad line that was ran. And I could get a dial tone on that thing if I need to dial 911. But legally, I could just, even though it's not an active line, it's a dry line, I could still get a dial tone.
Right.
You don't need power to get a dial tone.
No, I know.
I tell people this all the time. I recommend one of the old school phones. Just plug it right in. Everybody should have at least one as a backup.
But actually, I'm surprised my Google Voice has got a lot of phone numbers in my zip code or my area code.
Well, you're lucky. That means there haven't been a lot of people using it, and you can flip through them, and you may find something that's just a nice number like 5999 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey,
looking.
hey, Mike, how do you find out, since you've been in it now lately, how do you find out if a number is still good with them? I mean, the first number that we got from Google Voice, I don't know how many years ago.
They
haven't you-
expire
They expire.
Oh,
like
they
after
do?
a year.
Okay.
You log into the account it's associated with and try and call yourself from that number. You can always make an outgoing call, but if the caller ID does not show the original number, it's gone.
So, Mike, tell me again. This Obi-Hi, I plug it directly into the Ethernet. This has
Correct.
no computer interface here.
Correct.
Very good. So I'm gonna
It's
pick.
an all it is a sophisticated ATA, an advanced terminal adapter, or audio terminal.
But it
something
works
like
with
that.
Google Voice, which is what I've needed for a
Yes.
while. Because the big problem is there's these other solutions like what's the one you use, Amnon, VoIP or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're not the cheapest thing in the world.
I'm paying $50 a year, but I'm on a founder's plan.
Yeah,
but
the
that's
plan
on
is
here
right
too.
one.
I've got 3 services on this little box and got room for one more.
Yeah, so I mean it's $47 on Amazon. So I just picked one up and then
You know what? Even if you don't use it, it's for $47. It's worth getting to play with.
And then I just got like an $18 desk phone.
You can use a $5 desk phone.
I got a Panasonic KX desk phone.
Does anybody use Uma? I've been using Uma now for almost 2 years.
Isn't it really the same thing?
It's the same thing, but just that it's no cost. You pay the recurring, to keep the number, you have to pay the recurring FCC fees.
Yeah, I don't know how Google Voice gets away with not doing that. It's coming.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know how they get away with that.
I got a question for you guys.
All right.
I'm tired of constantly having to put in my credit card information when I pay stuff. Is there anything that I could use, any kind of service that stores everything in there, and I just hit one button and I could just use it that way?
Yes and no. Obviously, it's a bad idea to do that.
Very bad idea.
But for things like Amazon and those, the problem is that these browsers have JavaScript in there that keep you from saving the information in the browser.
Yeah.
But there is a JavaScript utility that you can run right before you click send, and it will allow you to save that information. You only have to run it once for most websites. That's what I use. I can give it to you privately.
I had to pay Brian actually right now for my web hosting. Brian, I think Brian's in the chat. Brian Aldred. And the reason why I had to pay him is because I lost my credit card and I had to get a new card. But this is a business card that I don't use, so I don't carry it on me. It just sits there. I only use this card for auto payments. But now I had to put in manually every single one every time I got like a payment decline because I forgot how many services I'm paying with this card. So I would love to run something, maybe like, I don't know if LastPass could do it, where I just store credit card 1 and I just pop it right in. But I don't know if it's possible.
Don't know for sure either. I don't believe in those things, but I do store some information. For example, I never store the CVV, something that they could.
Actually,
But
it
that's
is.
something
It
to
is.
remember. You
actually-
can remember your CVV.
No,
Yeah.
actually, Mike, you cannot store your CVV numbers. It's against the law for the merchant to store it. I mean, I cannot store CVV on.
But I can store it on my own computer. It has
Oh,
nothing
yeah.
to do with the
Yeah.
merchant.
Mike, I say this is what I suggest. Everybody should take a picture of their credit card front and back, and then upload it to their Google Drive.
There you go. Well, I got an idea. Just create a blog and put it up there, and just remember your blog address.
You can do that.
But actually, you make a good point, Andrew, and I thought you were going to California.
I was supposed to be there last week, but
That's-
I have a very important meeting tomorrow.
If you travel, then with your phone, you need to take a picture of any credit or debit cards you're taking with you, front
Yep.
and back.
Yeah.
But if you do that, make sure you have a PIN number to access your phone.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things now. More and more. Do you guys have to end the show, or you guys are going?
Well, no, we don't have an end time. We end when we're done.
Okay. So I'm realizing I am traveling a lot more, and I'm one of these people that doesn't have a PIN on their phone. I never put a PIN on my phone because it's an inconvenience for me to put it in constantly every time I need to access it. So I've been running around without a PIN, and I left my phone at press the other day. And I didn't realize it till I got home. And, luckily I know the waitress, I know the bartender, I know everybody there, and they immediately messaged me on Facebook, and they said, Andrew, your phone is here, I have it for you. But can you imagine if I didn't know the person and they went through my phone?
Yep. And when they saw the porn on it, they would really
a
panic.
lot of inappropriate photos. They would, I mean, forget about the photos because that's not an issue for me. But they would have my contacts list. I do store things like Social Security. I have a file with everybody's information on there. My banking info just in case. I started because I'm traveling now, and God forbid I need a checking account or something. My credit card, something happens. I have some information on there. So I have started putting a code on my phone now.
You know what I would now as I sit here thinking about this, let me tell you what I would probably do. If I thought about it, I would memorize the first or last 4 digits of the credit card, and I would take a program and blur those digits so that at least those 4 would not be at risk. For example, I have a web page. Hang on a second. A web page where I store the TeamViewer numbers and passwords, and none of the information is complete. It's all incomplete. So if somebody actually hacks into that or sees it, unless they know some of the gotchas that I use for passwords, like certain punctuation things, they'll never be able to guess the passwords.
Yeah, like I always tell people, the lock screen on your phone, it's always going to be your birthday. Everybody does their birthday, right? They do 4 digits, so they do, let's say,
Not me.
Well, I'm just giving an example. Let's say your birth date is 1216. I always just do a random combination of numbers that I can remember. 4445. That's my combo. Who's going to assume that that's my password? By the time they start, hitting every button to guess something, it's going to lock them out.
Yep.
The other thing you could do is actually check by smudge marks on people's phones. I've been able to numerous times, based on someone's smudge mark, based on how many times they're hitting it, I could kind of guess what the password is.
One other thing, then we got to wind it up here I've got to go anyway. I don't know whether you guys, Spencer, I don't know whether you saw it or Amnon, but AT&T Gigapower is active and working and being installed in Apex.
Really?
A guy over there.
I can't get Uverse, so it's not going to work here.
Yeah, if you can't get Uverse, but not being able to get Uverse probably indicates. See, if you can get Uverse, you're going to be upgraded later than someone who can't get Uverse, who's going to get the newest service. So you probably today are better off not being able to get Uverse than you otherwise would be, because they're going to have to wire your neighborhood. And I checked your house, Spence, and nothing's available there.
My neighbors can get it because it's an individual house by house issue in my neighborhood. So,
well, I guess it depends on how close your neighbors are.
Hey, yeah. Mike, I've got one quick question before you get out of here.
Okay.
If I do this Google Voice thing with the OBHI, what about can you have it so it won't ring that number and it will automatically forward to another device?
You can have it do. You can go into Google Voice and do just about anything you want.
What I'm thinking of is that's great. Like I go on vacation, I go out for the week, I go away for the weekend. Can I have it instead of ringing, my new number? Can I just have it automatically ring my cell phone when that number's dialed?
You can have it do that anyway.
I know, but I don't want that anyway. I'm saying when I'm.
I'm surprised you don't know the answer to this question.
I've never used Google Voice because I've
Google
never had.
Voice is Google Voice started out, instead of a direct phone service, was a referring or referral service. And then
To
what
get a
happens
number.
is a lot of people would, for example, the original way that you made a phone call on Google Voice
Yeah.
is that you would, let's see if I got this right. Anyway, to make the connection, Google Voice had to call you back to make the phone connection.
Yeah,
But
they call it find me, follow me.
But now a lot of lawyers, particularly solo lawyers, have it set up so that they give out their Google Voice number. It can either ring Google Voice, it can ring your cell phone, it can find you, and the first number that answers is the one that it gets. I mean, it's extremely powerful.
Yeah, and you can probably set hours up and stuff too.
Not sure about all that, but since, I mean, you're not going to be sitting there answering your phone 17, 18 hours a day.
Well,
So
I hardly get phone calls, so it really won't be a problem.
So if you don't need it to ring, then it works great. So
Well, you can actually set prioritization for certain numbers that come in to call you, where others would get automatically forwarded to voicemail. And so it's granular to the point of individual incoming calls.
Well, I picked one up, Mike, so it'll be here Tuesday.
all right. Well, if you don't like it, I'll buy it back from you.
Well, I'm sure I will like it. Actually, it'll be here Wednesday.
So getting back to the GigaPower thing with AT&T, there's a guy named Brian Land is his posting name on DSL Reports, and he posted his speed test for his GigaPower service from Apex to Charlotte. His download speed 921 megabits per second, upload 932 megabits per second, 11 milliseconds ping time.
Woo. And that's coming in on copper?
I don't
No,
know.
GigaPower is not copper.
I
GigaPower.
don't believe it's copper. It's got to be
It's fiber.
fiber.
Yeah, they have to run fiber to the house.
So, guys, you know what I just did? I just set up my phone to do only facial recognition. That's probably the best way to do your security.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't know if any of you have ever done that for the lock screen to do facial recognition.
Mac. All right. Anything else?
Really quickly.
Quickly.
Really quickly. Mike, that lady just emailed me back. It's not even a link to link. I don't
What
get a
is it?
link on their website. They just give me the article and I link back to them.
Never mind.
I
They
don't
give
see.
you free articles, essentially.
Yeah, but
And-
I mean, but I'm not getting any benefit out of it. I mean, this article is going to be on 100 other websites too. It's
Yeah,
not.
that's really bad. That's negative SEO for you. If
It's not an exclusive. It's not a review that I've done or that Jake's done that you're not going to find anywhere else. It's
Yeah,
going to be.
I'm going to post this link to the Apex GigaPower M9. You and Spencer might want to see it. The guy is in a townhouse in the Pemberley neighborhood, wherever that is.
I'm going to call them and see if they can bring it.
Be interesting to see.
Yeah.
It's
And even,
$120 a month.
yeah. $10 more, like they told me, right?
Yeah. Well, that's at
$40.
least today.
$40 more.
Competition will force
It's
it.
fine. I mean, 120 is fine. Because at that
No,
point, I mean, I'm already doing away with the T1, which is $200. It's okay.
Right. If I were you doing what you're doing, 120 would not be a deterrent. For me sitting at home playing on the internet, I
Yeah.
don't know that I want to double what I'm paying for faster upload whenever
Yeah.
it probably wouldn't make a lot of difference 95% of the time.
And one more thing, Nick,
Hello.
on the radar.
Yep, it is back. We
It's
did our
back?
first show yesterday.
I
yesterday
still don't
morning.
have the link to play here, but anybody that wants to watch it can.
What do you mean? I sent you the download link yesterday.
I didn't see it. Where? How'd you send it?
You asked me to send it to you on Skype, and I sent it to you.
I looked for it. I didn't see anything from Nick.
I sent it at 8:28 last night.
Okay. All right. I'll check again.
Yeah.
But
I'm like, caller ID on that phone? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Oh, that works with Google Voice?
Actually, that's a good point. Originally, caller ID did not come through, and I don't recall now whether it does. This phone that I have set up doesn't have caller ID on it
Well-
because it's actually a business phone that I'm using on the power fail mode.
Okay, never mind then.
I'm not sure, but I got to tell you, I mean, just get it and play with it, even if you don't use it. It's going to be
True.
useful going
I'm just trying to figure out
forward.
what desk phone to buy.
I'd find an old piece of junk. I'd go to a flea market and buy a $5 AT&T phone or something.
Staples or something may have. That's
Nah,
something cheap.
just look on Craigslist
the
or whatever
trash.
for multi-line, because a lot of people had them and they don't realize that they can use it with voice over IP.
In the
All
power
right.
fail mode.
So
Yeah, so on the radar is back.
it's
the
on
thing now.
Saturdays, 11 a.m.
Yep, that's it.
11 a.m. Eastern Ed.
Yep.
at radargaming.net.
.net. Yep, there it is.
All right. Anything else? Mike, Spence,
I'm done.
Andrew?
So long.
All right. So that's it for today. And good morning to Kathy, Hannah, Nabil, Mac, Norm, Katie, and Donna. Thank you, everybody, for tuning to Computers 2K Now. We hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something from our time together. Remember to practice safe computing, back up your hard drive, and update your virus scanner. We'll be back here next Sunday at 9, but you can always reach us at computers2know.com. While you're at it, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Actually, starting today with the rebroadcast at 2 o'clock, it's Your Healthy Pet and You, moving from Friday to Sunday. At 2 o'clock tomorrow morning, also at tomorrow actually at noon. At 1 o'clock, it's the Breaking Free show. And tonight, the Tanya Love show. So a lot going on. My weekend is getting kind of full. Talk to you next week.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Your Healthy Pet with Gisela DiCarlo. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.